Have I discussed the Yami Yami No Mi yet? Let's see. No, that's Bartolomeo's video. No, no, that's the boob video. No, that's the other boob video. Okay, no, I don't think I have. Okay, good. It's important to double check these things, you know? Blackbeard is such a popular character. It's sort of like a you love to hate him kind of guy, so I've talked about him quite a bit on the channel. Now, obviously, there's a lot of villains and enemies in the One Piece world that the Straw Hats have to go up against. And, you know, you have characters like more like groups, like the world government as a whole. The Gorosei, the Marines. Those are, of course, villains that the Straw Hats are going to have to overcome eventually in the story. But if you want to point to just one character and say, like, that's going to be, like, the final boss that Luffy's going to have to square off against, you're going to point to Blackbeard, right? Now, I've made a lot of videos about him. I did the Warlord discussion, like a general discussion about Blackbeard's character. I talked about his crew, and I also discussed theories revolving around his ability to have more than one Devil Fruit ability. So far, we only know he has two, but he's been hunting for Devil Fruits in the New World, so it's possible he can even consume more than that. But I think just disregarding the fact that he can absorb multiple Devil Fruits, because I think that's the thing, that as soon as he did that, he showed up at Marineford, absorbed the Gura Gura no Mi from Whitebeard somehow, everyone lost their shit. Like, whoa, okay, this guy, he has, like, some weird body, Marco called it, some strange ability, having more than one Devil Fruits, what's with this guy? And theories were abundant. But let's not forget his first ability. Let's not forget the first Devil Fruit he consumed, that we know of. The Logia type Yami Yami no Mi, or the Dark Fruit. I think a lot of people tend to gloss over that. Let's just focus on the Yami Yami no Mi, alright? So, yeah. First thing you gotta know about the Yami Yami no Mi is that it's the power of darkness incarnate. And you gotta... you know, actually kind of like that. Exactly like that, really. Okay, hold on. That's why you always wear a fez, kids. Alright. Oh yeah, this isn't your average everyday darkness. This isn't even advanced darkness. You know what this is? This is Dark Souls darkness. Yep, so you know what that means. I'm gonna have to gear up in some armor, grab a battle axe, and just delve into level after level of unyielding bloody gore. And
Sorry, Matthew, I tripped the breaker.
That's okay, Mom! Alright, yeah, that was a problem that was solved rather easily. You know, powers of darkness themselves manifesting to rip out your soul, or your mother plugging in the vacuum cleaner in the same circuit as the microwave. You know, easily mistaken for each other. Okay, darkness fruit, Yami Yami no Mi. Alright, few things about this fruit that are pretty weird right out of the gate. Some of them are like the actual abilities of the fruit, and other ways are just the way that Blackbeard discusses it. The way he talks about it is just a little strange, and I think it's going to lead to some stuff later on down the line. But first, let's look at what the Yami Yami no Mi really is. Okay, well, it's a Logia. However, Blackbeard states that even amongst the Logia class, it's a little unique, it's a little weird, and he even stated that the rarity is a little higher than a standard Logia. And that's something interesting to keep in mind, because it didn't seem like a lot of people really knew what it was or the power that it held, which is weird, because Blackbeard knew about it somehow. He knew what the fruit looked like in its normal fruit form. When Thatch got a hold of it, he knew exactly that that was the Yami Yami no Mi he was looking for. But you'd figure that some Devil Fruits are categorized in the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia, so if Blackbeard had just read the encyclopedia and saw the Yami Yami no Mi in there, then that would be public knowledge for anybody to know about. And it seems like whenever he got his power, you know, Ace didn't know anything about it, a lot of people didn't know what it was. Like, Whitebeard was left in the dark about this, no pun intended. The Marines, like Sengoku and Garp, really didn't even know what it was. You'd think if this was a categorized fruit that was in the book and just anybody could just read it and see that this is the Yami Yami no Mi, they would know the abilities that it had. So either something was up with, like, the previous users of the fruit, maybe they didn't understand the full weight of what they could really do with it, or Blackbeard found out about it in another way, like somebody else or some other, you know, source of information on what the fruit looked like and what it could actually do. Because you would think that if there was a Devil Fruit out there that had the ability to straight up nullify other Devil Fruit abilities, people would know about this if it was used before, if it was just in the book. That would be the most terrifying fruit ever. Blackbeard would come out and say, I have the Yami Yami no Mi, and Ace would be like, oh crap, that's the one that could absorb other Devil Fruit powers, you know, or at least even Ace, because he's young. Whitebeard or Sengoku or Garp should have definitely heard about it if it was that kind of well-known knowledge. So it is very rare, and it's possible that Blackbeard is the only one that's like currently alive that really knows about it. Maybe one of Blackbeard's ancestors or something had it and wrote it down in a book or a diary or a scroll or something, and Blackbeard discovered it. Like, yeah, I need to get my hands on that somehow. It might be something along those lines. But anyway, something else that puts it apart from every other Logia is that a fundamental ability that all Logia powers have in the series to transform your body into the element of that Logia fruit. So Ace and Sabo can become fire whenever they want to. Monet can become snow. Karibo can become mud. That's how the fruits work, and it lets attacks pass through them. Sometimes the actual element you turn into is intangible, like fire. So, you know, you could fire a cannonball at fire and it just passes right through because it doesn't have like a solid form. Other ones, like Aokiji, can control cold, so he can make his body ice. So a cannonball or something could hit him, but doesn't actually hurt him. Blackbeard's fruit is different for two reasons, actually. Number one, because darkness isn't really a tangible kind of element, at least in our world. Now, in the world of fiction, it kind of is. I think we've all seen this, like, the element of darkness in other anime and video games. It's like something that comes out in, like, some weird fog, as with the case with Blackbeard. We've probably seen this before. I'm simply saying that every other Logia turns into some substance or element that exists in our world. Now, darkness does exist in our world as well, but it's not like darkness is a substance or an element. Darkness is merely the absence of light, and that's it. But not in the One Piece world. It is the absence of light, but also it's this actual, like, you can see what it is in, like, form. It, like, has this weird fog thing that comes off of Blackbeard, and it can actually reach out and affect things in ways that darkness doesn't work in our world. So that's one way it's different, and the other is, even though he can summon darkness, Blackbeard cannot literally turn into darkness. He can't, like, change his entire body into a darkness form and let attacks pass through him, because the way he says this, and this was a little confusing, I admit, even for myself, he stated, you know, darkness drags in everything, you know, fire, bullets, lightning, light itself, you know, cannonballs, you know, weapons, swords, everything that you could think to throw at me, darkness could suck all of that in like it's nothing. But for that reason, he can't actually become darkness, and he can actually absorb pain way more than an average human. You know, pain is included in that as well. So that's kind of like a trade-off for the fruit. It gives you the ability to nullify other devil fruit abilities, which is immensely useful, but as a trade-off for that, you can't become intangible, and you basically have to actively, like, if an attack is coming at you, you have to actively summon the darkness to absorb it. If you don't react in time, if your reflexes aren't good enough, so if you're not trained very well with this fruit, I know a lot of other Logia users like Crocodile and the Admirals, they train with their Logia powers to the point where they can reflexively turn into their element without even really, you know, actually turning and, like, realizing an attack is coming at them. Like, if someone was going to, like, shoot, you know, a Kainu from a mile away with a gun, you know, he's trained his body to the point where, like, the second that bullet's gonna hit him, even without observation hockey, even without using that, the second that the bullet would have, like, hit his body, it turns into magma and it gets burned away, and he doesn't have to worry about that. So that's something you have to train with, though, with Logia powers. That's not something that just comes along with you. So in Blackbeard's case, it's taken to a whole other level. Not just training to become intangible, you can't do that. You have to train to summon your darkness to absorb attacks, and if you don't, if, like, someone shoots a gun at you and you can't react in time to throw up, like, a darkness wall to suck in that bullet's gonna hit you, it's gonna hurt you just like any other attack would, and the pain you are going to feel from that bullet is gonna be way more than an average human would have felt, because the pain is absorbed in as well, all that stuff. So, I don't really understand it a lot, but I just understand that Blackbeard feels a lot more pain than an average human, and that he can't turn intangible. But of course, the trade-off is that he can nullify devil fruit powers. So that's like the main draw of this fruit. That's the main power why Blackbeard wanted it. I mean, he does have some other cool abilities like Black Hole, allowing him to suck up pretty much anything in his surroundings, and that black fog he can summon. It just kind of, it's like a disease. It's just like a plague. It just covers the entire area like a black mist, and anything that he wants gets dragged in. He did this to an entire town on Bonnero Island. Like, an entire town was just, the fog just encroaches underneath the houses, and the houses just get compressed like an actual black hole, like the power of gravity, that's what he calls it, and it just gets sucked in. And then he has another ability called Liberation, which frees all the items that he sucked into the void of his devil fruit powers. It's also important to mention at this point, though, that the way he sucks things in and pulls them out are not the same as, like, Karibo's Numa No Mi. Whenever Karibo does it, he can suck in objects and he can pull things out whenever. You know, he could store, like, a Gatling gun. The Gatling gun does not get damaged while it's inside Karibo's swamp body. He can actually summon it whenever. Like, there's probably a bunch of stuff floating around in Karibo's swamp, but he can summon whatever he wants at will. You know, he was like, I want a Gatling gun, and the Gatling gun just appears out of his body and he can use like normal. Blackbeard's is not the same as that. Maybe with training, he can learn how to better manipulate the things that are in his, like, pocket universe, his little space he has. But from what we've seen so far, anything that gets dragged in literally gets crushed by the gravity and compressed inside of his body. When he releases the stuff, it's all, like, scrap metal, like, wrecked to shreds. He can't, like, he's like, okay, I sucked in a flashlight, and now I summon said flashlight specifically. We haven't seen him do anything like that, and even if he did do that, the flashlight would be broken and mangled and broken apart. You know, that seems like how it works. Like I said, maybe with training, because he did just recently acquire the Yami Yami No Mi. He only had like a few weeks, maybe a month or so, to really mess around with his fruit by the time he fought Ace. And Marineford wasn't long after that either, so maybe he could train and get it better, but from what we've seen, we haven't been able to, like, you know, pull things in and out at will, and everything's perfectly fine. We did see him drag in humans and living organisms into his darkness as well. We saw him do this in Impel Down and also in Marineford. When he did it in Impel Down, he dragged a bunch of guards in and then expelled them, and they were all unconscious and bleeding and, like, severely mangled. And I think there was even some trauma with that. I think there was even one of them that was like, I've seen the devil himself and he winked at me. I can't put out for the devil. You know, like, they were seriously messed up in the head. At least I think that happened. You know, if they were dragged in, you'd think, like, the massive amounts of gravity that, like, can crush houses and all this metal stuff, you think the gravity would also have crushed their bones, and so they would have come out in, like, you know, piles of gore. But then again, remember, this is One Piece. You can't have too much blood everywhere. And also, you know, if that was the case, Blackbeard's ability would be, you know, so OP, like even more OP than it already was. You know, just black hole, summon your fog darkness, and everyone in the entire area just gets dragged in and instantly crushed under the weight of gravity, and then gets expelled in bloody chunks of viscera and everything. He's like, there you go, I just did like a kill streak bonus, you know, 100 plus, who's next? You know, maybe you could resist it if you were, you know, if you had armament hockey or something, but we haven't really seen all that many people getting dragged into Blackbeard that was of any note. It's usually just like riffraff. Like, here's a bunch of random guards from Impel Down. Here's a bunch of random fodder marines from the war at Marineford. We've never seen, like, Luffy or one of the admirals or somebody get sucked into his void and see how that would play out. We don't know. Although that's possible. It might be like a straight up pocket universe. Like, if Luffy ever gets, like, sucked in, maybe he's in this weird space where he's, like, inside Blackbeard and he sees all this stuff floating around, like, in Kirby's stomach, and he can't use his devil fruit powers because he's, like, in this big nullification zone or something. But yeah, that's strange. All right, now I put it off long enough, though. We need to talk about the nullification thing. Okay, so there's a few rules to this. It seems really badass at first. Like, he has the ability to nullify devil fruit powers. Yes, he does. And it seems like it's even more of a nullification than the ocean or, like, sea prism stone does. Now, I'm gonna get into this discussion very briefly, but whenever Luffy was, like, underwater, he might lose consciousness because he can't breathe underwater and he's, like, drowning, and he can't move too well, but his body is still rubber. It can still stretch. Whenever sea prism stone is used on Luffy, like when Smoker had his staff Judy thing that I can never pronounce right, you know, the tip of that is made out of sea prism stone. He stabbed Luffy with it in the neck, and it really did hurt him there in the neck. When armament hockey is used, it seems kind of like, you know, it forces the user's body into flesh and can be injured by physical means, like when Garp used armament hockey to, like, pinch Luffy's cheek. the way I have to look at this is when a user is submerged in water, they could still have their devil fruit abilities. Like, it's not like their body goes back to being normal. It's just that they lose all their energy, they can't move, and they'll eventually be rendered unconscious if they don't have some way to breathe underwater. They won't be able to move around too much. Sea Prism Stone is like the power of the ocean condensed in like a physical form, like a hard and dense, form, like a mineral. And this can be used in like, Sea Prism Stone handcuffs and everything. And I'm assuming it's because of the density that you have in the Sea Prism Stone handcuffs and the jail cells and everything that the user can't, their bodies are basically forced into a normal form as long as they're contained with the Sea Prism Stone. I'm thinking that whenever it's like a small amount, like the tip of Smoker's staff, or something like that, like when he was stabbing Luffy in the neck, only that particular area became normal. Like, I don't think that, like, just because that one little part of the Sea Prism Stone touched Luffy's neck, his whole body turns back to normal. I don't think that was the case. I think it was just in the part that it was touching. And the same thing with Armament Hockey, whenever Garp was using Armament Hockey to pinch Luffy's cheek, or whenever Luffy used Armament to grab Caesar Clown. It's only the particular parts of the body that go back to being normal, like Luffy's cheek, or whenever Luffy grabbed Caesar Clown. Caesar, like, part of his body was still gaseous, and I think he was even still floating in the air using his gas powers. It was just that part Luffy was grabbing he could hold on to. With Blackbeard's ability, it seems like no matter what fragment of the body you're touching, no matter how little, like Blackbeard could, charge up the darkness in his hand, and it does seem like he has to use his hand for this. It doesn't seem like any type of contact will work. It literally has to be his, like, hand. Maybe it only has, like, some certain devil fruits, like Bon Clay's Mane Mane no Mi. It's like his right hand changes him into somebody, and his left hand turns him back. Maybe it's something like that with Blackbeard, because we see him, using his right hand, using Kuro Ozu, Black Vortex, or Black Whirlpool, or Dark Water to drag someone in and grab them, and then that's when all their devil fruit abilities go away and they seem to go back to just being normal. Even if it's like an arm, he grabbed all of Luffy's chest, or even if he like just grabs your finger like this, that would probably be good enough. As long as he's physically touching you with his hand, then he can take away all your devil fruit abilities, completely nullified. You go back to being like you never even ate the fruit to begin with. At that point, he can deal as much physical damage as he wants on you, no matter what type of devil fruit user you are. With Ace, he couldn't turn back into fire, so all Blackbeard had to do at that point was just punch him square in the freaking head at point blank range, and that really messed up. Like Ace, like, oh man, he almost snapped my neck. He was really strong. So Blackbeard's a lot stronger than he looks. It's just that with the amount of pain that he feels with his devil fruit, it seems like he's kind of a weakling whenever he gets hit with something. You think like he's going to be easy to beat, but no, it's just that he feels a lot more pain. His level of endurance, on the other hand, that's something completely different. It's just that his pain tolerance is very low, endurance level very high. So, whenever Luffy was an impale down and used like Jet Pistol on Blackbeard and knocked him into a wall, and he was like, oh god, it hurts so much, damn it! That doesn't mean like, oh yeah, he's on the ropes, Luffy, finish him off. No, he's still tough, and he did get up after that, and he was like, okay, go find your brother, kid, but of course the obvious weakness of this is that he has to stay in contact with the person. And in Whitebeard's case, he grabbed Whitebeard, so he nullified the Gura Gura no Mi powers, but he forgot, oh wait a second, Whitebeard is also like, 17 feet tall and muscular, and he has the giant Bicento bladed weapon that he then used to like freaking slash Blackbeard right across the chest, which, by the way, Blackbeard took that. Whitebeard, all of his physical strength, granted he was weakened a little bit at the war, but all of his physical strength, point blank range, Bicento, just slash that just right down the side, blood everywhere. And Blackbeard, of course, he was hurt. He was like, oh, it hurts so much pain. But he got back up, and he seemed to be perfectly in cheery state after that. Like, he was able to do the whole thing with is like, oh, it's a great show we're gonna put on, ladies and gents, and gun down Whitebeard. And then he, was able to stand up against Sengoku's, shockwaves and everything, even after getting point blank struck from the Bicento. So yeah, you have to keep that in mind though. Nullifying devil fruit abilities, you still got physical strength. So if the person that's having their devil fruit powers nullified is strong enough, like, I don't think this would work on Kaido, is what I'm saying. Let's say, for a matter of argument, Kaido does have a devil fruit. I like to think he doesn't. I like to think he's just a really strong, just giant demon dude. Maybe he's a different species of human, or like a descendant of like Orz's demon giant race or something, but let's just say for right now, for the sake of argument, he does have a devil fruit. And, Blackbeard goes up to him and like touches his leg and like, ho ho, you can't use your devil fruit power anymore. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at that point because, Kaido is so ungodly strong anyway, he can just like smash freaking into Blackbeard's face or something. Unless the devil fruit itself is because he's so big, but I don't subscribe to that theory. Maybe you do, I'm just saying I don't. So yeah, those are the techniques that we know so far, the 3 named ones anyway. Black Hole, which sucks things into this space inside of Blackbeard using his darkness fog, and then using the power of gravity, it like crushes and condenses it while it's in there. I'm also assuming he came up with this ability on his, like the name of this attack on his own, because I don't think the people in One Piece know what like crossing the event horizon or, what actual like a black hole is. So Blackbeard's like, yeah, I'll name this technique Black Hole because I'm Blackbeard and it's black and it opens up a hole. Yeah, let's go with that. And then you have Liberation, which liberates all of the items or people that get sucked in using the aforementioned black hole ability. And then you have Kuro Ozu, Dark Water or Dark Vortex, which just pulls people in. Now, whenever he uses Kuro Ozu and pulls people toward him, he grabs them, and that's when he nullifies the ability. This ability might not be the actual, like, they might not be the same thing as what I'm saying. The Kuro Ozu might just be an ability where he uses gravity to, pull an opponent towards him, and the actual act of grabbing them and nullifying Devil Fruit abilities, that might be like another name technique that he hasn't revealed yet, or it might not even have a name. But don't think of them as like the exact same thing, because they're really not. But they might as well be, because whenever an opponent gets dragged into Blackbeard, he grabs them and they get nullified anyway, so that's the case there. So, we haven't seen Blackbeard since the time skip, in person. We saw him on the Den Den Mushi and everything, but we haven't seen him in person, so we don't really know how he's evolved with this. We know that he's out there in the new world searching for new Devil Fruit abilities, so there has to be some way that he can either give these abilities to his crewmates. Like, I like to think he has some sort of Devil Fruit armory, like using his weird body, which Marco spoke about. Using his weird body, he could be like an intermediary for Devil Fruit powers. Like, he can take them and expel them from his body as he see fits. Like, he could take the Guru Guru no Mi, and he's like, alright, I have the Guru Guru no Mi, but now I'm going to take it out of my body without dying, and put it into a fruit, and put it in, like, my armory, and now somebody else could use it if they want to. And then I could take it out of them and put it back in the fruit without them dying. That would be a revolutionary ability, for him to be, like, the intermediary, to move around Devil Fruit abilities without worrying about dying. So I like to think he has, like, a Devil Fruit armory, or he just himself, he can switch around Devil Fruit abilities depending on, maybe there's a certain limit. Like, I think people say there's 3 because there's that whole Cerberus theory and the fact that his Jolly Roger has 3 heads. People think that, maybe he can have 3 Devil Fruit powers at once, or he can switch them out whenever, but, like, the upper limit is 3 at one time. I'm just saying, we know he has 2 right now, so if he can have 2, it's not too, like, much of a far stretch to say he could have 3 or 4 or more than that. There's other theories. People say that it's the rings that he's wearing that's what absorbed the Guru Guru no Mi ability, and I'm not saying that doesn't make sense. It does. I'm just saying, like, I think Oda's going to come up with something a little bit more clever than that on how he can have more than one Devil Fruit ability than just something simple like it was just his rings the whole time. I mean, that makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just like, that's kind of a lousy payoff. I think Oda can give us something more than that. I would like it to have something to do with, like, his lineage. Like, maybe his grandfather, or maybe because he's a D, he's a member of the D clan. So maybe a long time ago, there was an ancestor of him that had the Yami Yami No Mi and wreaked havoc, and then he died and the power went away, and he wrote about it, and then Blackbeard discovered it, and that's the reason he has this weird body, is because maybe his ancestor was like a strange person of the D clan, maybe a usurper or something. That would explain why Whitebeard is like, the one Roger's waiting for is not you, Teach. So maybe he's a member of the Willa D clan, but he's like maybe an outlier or something. That would be cool. Yeah, but so far, his ability is strong. There's not saying it isn't. It's just there's a lot of weaknesses to this. If he doesn't react quick enough to a projectile attack, he's going to get hit. High pain, is something that can be very bad if you get hit. If you just keep slamming him full of attacks and you don't give him enough time to recover, because it seems like every time he gets hit, they kind of stopped hurting him after that. After Luffy jet pistoled him, they just kind of gave him time to get back up, and they didn't even bother fighting him after that. After Whitebeard hit him, you know, he was able to get back up after that, and he got hit by Sengoku later, but it wasn't like, if you just jackhammer the dude, you gotta be careful. You can't do it up in personal. You can't go, like, one-on-one fist fight with the dude, because you're gonna lose, unless you're, like, some insanely strong dude like Kaido. But normally, if you're, like, even if you're, like, an admiral, like, if Akainu went right up against Blackbeard, you know, one-on-one, it wouldn't be a guaranteed win for Akainu, because, you know, he grabs you and then you're screwed. You can't turn into magma, and then, you know, Blackbeard can just unload on you with all this darkness abilities, you know, suck you into his black void or something, which you'd think would be an ability that he would use on people way more often. You'd think, like, upon seeing, oh shit, there's Whitebeard and there's Sengoku, he would just black hole and suck up everybody, instead of trying to nullify Whitebeard's power, he would suck him in, you know? But maybe there's a way to nullify that. Maybe if you're you're using hockey or whatever, you can, you know, nullify getting sucked into the darkness or something. And something else that Whitebeard did when he was holding Blackbeard down is that his fruit wasn't nullified when he was holding him down, you know, because he used the Gura no Mi point blank on Blackbeard, something else that he was able to resist. Even though he was physically touching him. So that's what I think, like, it's just his hands. So yeah, as for an awakening of this fruit, from what we've seen with other Logia, and this doesn't really work too well, because like I said, Blackbeard's fruit is kind of a weird Logia, it's unique amongst Logia, but with Akainu and Aokiji's fight on Punk Hazard, they were both Logia, they were definitely awakened, and the weather actually began to change on Punk Hazard, half magma, half ice. So if we're following this logic, then maybe when Blackbeard awakens his fruit, he can summon like a veil of darkness over an entire island. In fact, I'm envisioning that now. Like, Blackbeard as a Yonko has his home island, and the entire island is just perpetual night, just covered in a dark fog, that the second you enter, Blackbeard knows you're there, and he could, like, suck you into this void whenever he wants. You know, like, even more to the level of, like, going into Big Mom's territory. She knows you're there because of all of her homies. You go into Blackbeard's territory uninvited, and he could just suck you into his pocket dimension whenever. He could just crush you with his gravity whenever. That would be an interesting premise for, like, an island if that was awakened. But, yeah. So anyway, that's everything I got. Other Blackbeard video. I don't know if I'm going to be making any more videos about him, because I think I've just kind of discussed so much. But, you know, later on in the story, when he shows back up and has something going on, then I'll talk about him. But as for just, like, everything involving Blackbeard, I think I've discussed everything, really. But, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know what you think about the Yami Yami No Mi and what you think Blackbeard, other abilities he could do with it. Maybe he could channel it into weapons or something, like a dark sword or something. I mean, that's always cool. Yeah. By the way, has anyone, because one of his techniques is called Dark Water, does anyone remember that show, Dark Water? It was a cartoon way back when. Yeah, it was also an SNES game that I played when I was a little kid, and it kicked my ass. That game was it was a meat grinder. It was like a Street Fighter kind of style, but it was just a freaking meat grinder. Anyway, later.